Okay. Hello, everybody. All right, chapter 4. Okay, so the first three chapters were more or less review. This chapter, I'm going to present brand new information. Okay, so we'll go slower. Okay, than I did the first three chapters. Yeah. So hopefully, this makes sense to you guys. And of course, we can always review like during class, during official class time. Okay. All right. Screen. Okay. So we're going to go through all four topics here. Okay. Um, okay. So the properties of living organisms. Okay. All living organisms have to do all these things, and the to do all these things, you need these four things to happen. Okay. You need some type of energy. Okay. You need to have chemical reactions happen, and you need enzymes to speed up the chemical reactions. And then last but not least, you need some form of metabolism. In fact, metabolism is by definition what makes us living. Okay. So that things don't have metabolism. You're dead, you don't have metabolism. Viruses, even though they have genetic information, don't have metabolism. That's why they're not considered alive. Okay. So okay. So make sure you go through all this table. Okay, so all living organisms need a source of energy. Okay, most 99.9% of our energy ultimately comes from the sun. Okay, so plants, I'm sure you guys know, can trap energy from the sun through photosynthesis. Okay, and they can then store this energy in forms of chemical bonds, and they produce sugar with it. Okay, all animals by definition must eat. Okay, and they can either eat plants, which get their energy from the sun, or they can eat other animals, which eat plants, which get their energy from the sun. Okay, so ultimately, and we do combination of both, right? We eat um, plants like the avocado just had, and other animals like um, well, I haven't had, well, actually, I had some chicken earlier. So chicken, okay. So we can get energy through either ingestion of plants or animals, and eat both of those ultimately get their energy from the sun. Okay. Okay. So energy transfer. Okay. Um, Energy, as defined by physics, okay, is the ability to do work, capacity to do work. Okay. There are a couple of different types of work. Uh, so chemical work, okay. Chemical work is actually a subset of mechanical work. Okay. Let me put myself a little bit. Okay. So chemical work is the making and breaking of chemical bonds. Okay. The transport work. Okay. And then mechanical work. Okay. So go through. Okay. In terms of energy, energy comes in two very big forms. Okay, it's either kinetic energy or potential energy. Okay, you can convert between the two. Okay, so kinetic energy is the energy of motion. Uh, Potential energy is the energy of stored energy or the energy of position. Okay, so if you think kinetic energy, think a moving bullet. Okay, lots of kinetic energy is stored in that bullet. Okay, or being used in that bullet, not stored. Potential energy is stored energy. Okay, you can store energy. Okay, in different formats. Okay, the most important one, really, in terms of Physiology is stored in chemical gradients, okay, and in chemical bonds. Okay. For example, sugar has a lot of energy that can be released once you break sugar open. Okay. The other form of energy, another way of conserving it are using potential energy to store the concentration gradient. Okay. I store, and you'll see this in the later chapter, in the next chapter. If I store all the hydrogens on one side of the membrane and not let them cross, all the hydrogens are desperate to cross the membrane, and they will provide you with energy as they cross. So you can store potential energy not only in chemical bonds, but also in concentration gradients. Okay. Okay. So this is very typical of kinetic energy and potential energy diagram. Okay. So you are here translating kinetic energy. It costs you effort to push the ball up the hill. Okay. The ball, as it goes up higher and higher, has more and more potential energy. You have less and less kinetic energy. Okay, so that's potential energy, and then kinetic energy. If you roll that ball down the hill, it will transfer its energy of position to the energy of motion. Okay. All right. The laws of energy, okay, follow something called the laws of thermodynamics. Okay. There's two important laws that you have to learn. The first law of thermodynamics is conservation of energy. Okay, the total amount of energy in the universe is the same. Okay, you can add it, you can't really add or subtract to it. You can convert from one form of energy to another, but the total amount of energy in the universe is constant. Okay. The second law of thermodynamics, okay, suggests that we can move from order to randomness or disorder. So processes always move from a state of disorder to randomness or disorder, otherwise known as entropy. So another way of expressing the second law of thermodynamics is that entropy always increases for any chemical reaction that occurs. Okay. Okay. Bioenergetics is the study of energy flow through biological systems. Okay. And it's actually a field also. Bioenergetics is actually a very big field. Okay. Of biochemistry. Okay. It studies chemical reactions where the reactants become products, reaction rate, deals with the amount of free energy and the activation energy to get reactants started. Okay, we'll go over more all of these in more detail soon. Okay. Okay. Free energy. Okay, so the reaction. There are two types of reactions, really. Okay, exergonic reactions produce energy. They release energy. Okay, inorganic reactions utilize energy or they absorb energy. Okay, these terms mean the same thing. Okay, either absorb energy or utilize energy mean the same thing. Producing energy or releasing energy mean the same thing. Okay, when we teach it to you guys, we kind of teach it in different categories and stuff. But what's actually happening in reality inside the cell is that these reactions are happening together. You use the exergonic reaction of one or exergonic release of one reaction to drive the intergonic reaction. Okay, these things are coupled together in reality. Okay. Okay. When we calculate how much energy is released and how probable a reaction is, we use something called Gibbs free energy. Okay. Pause this for a second. Okay. The Gibbs free energy actually determines whether a chemical reaction is reversible or not. Okay. If things don't require a lot of free energy, then the reaction is defined as reversible. It's easy to flip back and forth. And most of the chemical reactions in the body actually are of that category. Okay. They can flip back and forth relatively easily. When you have more reactants, they flip one way. When you have less reactants, they flip the other way. Okay. The irreversible reactions are the ones that we tend to control more in the body. These are, if you go forward, there's no going back. Okay. And therefore we control that a lot more. Okay. All right. All right. Table 2 has a list of reaction types. Okay. So basically, you can learn all this on your own. Combination and decomposition are the opposites of each other. So combination is slamming two things together to make one big thing. Decomposition is breaking two things apart, or breaking one thing apart to two things. This is a single replacement. This is a double replacement. Okay. All right. All chemical reactions, okay, require a little bit of input of energy first. This little bit of energy first, it has a unique name, activation energy. The amount of energy needs to activate two components, okay, to react. Okay, and so this is the energy of activation or activation energy. Okay, so a little bit of it is like rolling this ball down the hill here, but to get the reactant going, you have to get it at least that high. Okay. Imagine if this is you. Okay, this is you pushing this reactant ball. Okay, if you can get it that high, then the ball can roll down the hill all the way to the products easily without you doing anything else. However, you have to get the reactants up that hill. So you require a little bit of input of energy. If you do not have that little bit of input of energy, you can never get up the hill and nothing will happen. Okay. 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 So the activation energy, okay, is required in both the exergonic and endergonic reactions. Okay. So I want you to kind of understand what this chart looks like. Okay. You have a reactant and you have a product. In this case, the energy, so all things want to go toward lower energy levels. Okay. They want to have a negative free energy level. Okay. So go from high to low. Okay. So these are exergonic reactions. Okay. exergonic reactions will occur on their own without any other input. Inorganic reactions can never occur on their own without an exergonic reaction happening to provide the energy. Okay, so exergonic reactions release energy because they start off with more energy, end up with less energy, and therefore that energy is released. Okay, inorganic reactions absorb activation energy and they only release some of it back out. So they absorb some energy. Okay. 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 When we release energy in biological reactions, okay, always some of the energy is released as heat. Okay. That is actually part of the second law of thermodynamics. Any chemical reaction will release part of the energy released as heat. Okay, and heat is what drives chaos. Okay, so some energy is released as heat. If you don't, a great way of demonstrating this is if you go outside right now and you run around for 5-10 minutes, your body will feel warmer. Your body feels warmer because your muscles are moving. Okay, your muscles are moving to get you to move. But as a side reaction, they release heat. Okay, as a side product, they release heat. Okay, and that's what warms you up. Okay. Okay. We they also release high energy electrons. These high energy electrons like FAD, MAD, we can transfer to ATP, and we can use it to produce more energy. Okay. So we take energy from exergonic reactions, we temporarily store it in terms of high energy electrons, and we use these high energy electrons to fuel inorganic reactions. Okay. Okay. So some reactions have huge activation energies, and these are the ones that are most controlled by enzymes. Okay. All right. I should finish enzymes. Okay. So enzymes. Okay. The purpose of enzymes is it speeds up the rate of chemical reactions. Okay. They're organic catalysts. Okay. Okay. Enzymes are not magic. Okay. They can't make a chemical reaction happen that's not supposed to happen. What they can do really well is they can speed up chemical reactions. Okay. And they can speed up chemical reactions by a lot, meaning they can speed up those chemical reactions by millions of fold. Okay, so here is a Tic Tac. Okay, so these Tic Tacs are basically sugar. Sugar will eventually break down on its own. Okay, it will literally just take about a million years to do so. Obviously, we don't have enough. We don't have to wait around a million years to eat this Tic Tac. Okay, so my body has enzymes to actually break down the Tic Tac into energy, okay, into ATP, which we use it to store energy, which will drive chemical reactions like building muscle, or in my case, building more fat. Okay, enzymes are mostly made out of proteins, okay, or RNA, although those RNA are usually called ribozymes. Okay. isoenzymes, isozymes, okay, catalyze same reaction but in different conditions or in different tissues. Okay. So a great example of what isozyme is, okay. If I take sugar and you put it in your mouth, there's enzymes that are in your mouth that will start breaking down the sugar and breaking down the starch. Okay. But when that sugar, those enzymes, when you swallow, those enzymes enter your stomach. Your stomach has a very negative or very acidic pH. So it will disrupt all those enzymes and prevent them from ever working again. And then in your small intestine, you again have the same enzyme as in your mouth. Okay, so those are two separate enzymes that function the same to digest sugar. So they work the same, they do the same chemical reactions, but they're in different environments, so they're isozymes. Okay. Okay. There are diagnostically important enzymes. So if these enzymes are usually produced in certain places, and if they end up in your bloodstream, that means there's damage to those places. Okay, so the acid phosphatase is an enzyme that's produced by the prostate. So if you have those enzymes, okay, in your bloodstream, and you measure for those enzymes in your bloodstream, if you have elevated, like there's always minimum levels that get into your bloodstream just because, but if it's elevated, that means you have a high chance of getting or of having prostate cancer. Okay, like amylase is an enzyme that digests sugar. It shouldn't really be in your bloodstream. So if you have elevated levels of amylase in your bloodstream, it usually means you have pancreatic cancer or some other pancreatic disease. Okay. 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 Enzymes, okay, only work at a certain pH. Okay. In our body, the enzymes that are in our blood, okay, work around a pH of 7.4 because our internal environment is usually 7.4. Okay, our bloodstream is 7.4. That does not mean that enzymes, we do not have enzymes that work at other pHs. Okay, for example, the enzymes that work in our stomach has a optimal activity level at around pH 2 because that's what it takes to function in the stomach. Okay. Okay. So, what enzymes actually do? Okay, enzymes lower the activation energy of reactions. Okay, they don't. So they don't change the beginning. They don't change the ending. All they do is lower the hill. Okay, so imagine you are in the third floor of the Empire State. Okay, you have two options. Option one, you run up to the fourth floor and then you go all the way back to the bottom. Okay, all the way back to the first floor, right? All the way back down to the entrance. Okay, that's doable for almost everybody. Okay, the other option is you go from the third floor, you run all the way up to the Empire, run all the way up the stairs to the top of the Empire State Building, and then run all the way back down. Okay, in either case, you start off on the third floor, you end up on the first floor. So you end up at a lower energy level than you get. But only very few of us has that amount of energy animation to run all the way up to the Empire State Building and all the way back down. But almost all of us can run up a flight of stairs. And therefore, like the chemical reaction will happen faster, right? It's easier to do. So it'll happen faster. Okay, that's what we mean by lowering the activation energy, and that's what we mean by speeding up the reaction. We speed up the reaction because more of the reactants have the ability, have the energy of activation to get to the product. Okay. All right. We will stop right here. Okay. And then I'll pick up the second half of this for part 2.